His fiancée slapped his dying mother. The maid grabbed her wrist. Touch her again. I dare you. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. I pressed my palm against the tall window in the east corridor, feeling the cold seep through the glass and into my bones. Outside, the Vale estate stretched into darkness. Rows of cypress trees bending under the storm, gravel paths flooding into shallow rivers. Inside, the silence was heavier than it should have been. The kind of silence that came before something shattered. I'd worked here for 11 months. 11 months of polishing marble floors no one walked on, arranging roses in crystal vases for rooms no one entered, and keeping my head down while whispers of violence and blood money drifted through doorways I wasn't supposed to pass. I was good at being invisible. It was the only way to survive in a house like this. But tonight, I'd been called to her room. Signora Theodora Vale, the matriarch, the dying queen of a crumbling empire. Knocked twice on the heavy oak door, then slipped inside without waiting for an answer. The air smelled like lavender oil and something medicinal, something that clung to the back of my throat. She lay propped against embroidered pillows, her skin paper-thin, her breathing shallow and uneven. But her eyes, dark, sharp, impossibly aware, tracked my movements as I crossed the room. "Sarah," she said, her voice little more than a rasp. "You're late." "Traffic on the stairs, Signora," I murmured, setting down the tray of tea and honey. "Forgive me." Her lips twitched, almost a smile. Liar. I didn't argue. She liked that about me. I didn't fuss or pity her. I just poured the tea, adjusted her blankets, and let her pretend she was still formidable. "My son arrives tonight," she said, watching me over the rim of her cup. "With her." I stilled. Her. Vivienne Marchand, the fiancée. The woman whose name turned the other staff cold and quiet whenever it was spoken. I'd never met her, but I'd heard enough. Sharp tongue, sharper nails, and a smile that could gut you if you weren't careful. "He should have married someone with a spine," Theodora muttered, her gaze drifting to the rain-streaked window. "Not a viper in silk." I didn't respond, it wasn't my place. But I felt the weight of her words settle in the room, thick and foreboding. They arrived an hour later. I heard the cars first. Engines growling up the long driveway, tires crunching over wet gravel. Then voices in the foyer below, low and clipped. One of them I didn't recognize. Smooth, controlled, edged with authority. Cassian Vale, the son, the heir. The man who ran the underworld of this city with the same cold precision his mother once had. I stayed in Theodora's room, folding linens that didn't need folding, my pulse unsteady. Then footsteps echoed down the corridor. Sharp heels. A woman's laugh, bright and brittle. The door swung open without warning. She entered first, Vivienne Marchand, draped in black. Silk and diamonds, her hair pulled into a sleek knot that made her cheekbones look like blades. She barely glanced at me before her gaze landed on Theodora, and her smile sharpened into something cruel. "Still breathing," Vivienne said lightly, tossing her coat onto a chair. "How resilient." Theodora's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Behind Vivienne, he appeared. Cassian Vale, tall, broad-shouldered. Dark hair slicked back, rain still glistening at his temples. His suit was immaculate, charcoal gray and fitted like armor, but it was his eyes that stopped me. Pale gray, cold as winter steel, scanning the room with the kind of focus that made you feel hunted. His gaze passed over me for half a second. I felt it like a blade. Then he moved to his mother's bedside, his expression unreadable. "Mama." Her hand lifted weakly and he took it, pressing his lips to her knuckles with a gentleness that didn't match the rest of him. Vivienne rolled her eyes. "How touching," she said, pulling out her phone. "I'll be downstairs. This room smells like death." Theodora's breath hitched. "Get out." Vivienne paused, one hand on her hip, her smile venomous. "Excuse me." "I said get out," Theodora repeated, her voice stronger now, trembling with fury. "You don't belong here." "Cassian," Vivienne said, her tone mockingly sweet. "Your mother seems confused again." He didn't look at her. his jaw clenched, the only sign of tension. Theodora tried to sit up straighter, her hand shaking. "You poisonous little—" Vivian moved, fast, deliberate. Her hand cracked across Theodora's face. The sound split the room like thunder. I didn't think. I just moved. My fingers locked around Vivian's wrist before she could pull back, my grip tighter than it should have been, harder than I'd ever touched anyone. Her skin was cold beneath my palm, and for one breathless second, the world narrowed to the space between us. Her widened eyes, my pounding heart, the rain hammering against the glass. "Touch her again," I said, my voice low and steady despite the tremor in my hands. "I dare you." Silence. Absolute. Suffocating. Vivian stared at me like I'd grown fangs, then her lips curled into something ugly. "You're fired." "No," Cassian said, his voice cut through the room like a knife. We both turned. He stood at the foot of his mother's bed, his hands in his pockets, his expression carved from stone. His gaze was fixed on me, not angry, not surprised, just assessing. "She stays," he said quietly. Vivian's face flushed. "Cassian, leave." It wasn't a request. Vivian's mouth opened, closed. Then she yanked her wrist free from my grip, spun on her heel, and stormed out, her heels echoing down the hall like gunfire. The door slammed, and I was left standing there, heart racing, pulse roaring in my ears, with Cassian Vale's pale gray eyes still locked on mine. "What's your name?" he asked. "Sarah," I whispered. His gaze didn't waver. "You just made a very dangerous mistake, Sarah." My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I stood in the narrow servants' corridor outside the kitchen, pressing my palms flat against the cold stone wall, trying to steady my breathing. The adrenaline from upstairs still coursed through my veins, hot and electric, making my skin feel too tight. "You just made a very dangerous mistake, Sarah." His voice played on repeat in my head, low, controlled, carrying a warning I'd been too reckless to heed in the moment. I'd grabbed Vivienne Marchand. I'd threatened her. In front of him. What the hell had I been thinking? "You weren't," I whispered to myself, closing my eyes. "You weren't thinking at all." Footsteps approached from the kitchen. Maria, the head housekeeper, her face creased with worry. She'd been here 20 years, long enough to know when to speak and when to disappear. Right now, she looked like she wanted to do both. "Sarah?" she said softly, glancing over her shoulder. "What happened up there?" My throat closed. "I defended Signora Theodora." Maria's expression shifted from worry to something closer to grief. "From her?" I nodded. She crossed herself. "Madonna Santa, you need to leave. Tonight. Before what?" a voice asked from the doorway. We both froze. Cassian Vale stood at the threshold between worlds, the polished marble of the main house behind him, the plain stone of our domain before him. He'd removed his suit jacket, his white shirt rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms marked with old scars that caught the dim light. He looked less like the composed air from upstairs and more like something wild, barely contained. Maria dropped into a curtsy so fast I heard her knees crack. "Signore, forgive us." "Leave," he said, not looking at her. His eyes were fixed on me. Maria fled. The corridor suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker. "You didn't answer my question earlier," Cassian said, stepping inside. The door clicked shut behind him. "What made you think you had the right to touch her?" My pulse hammered against my throat. "She struck your mother." I saw. "Then you know." "I know that servants don't put their hands on my fiancé," he interrupted, his voice dropping lower, more dangerous. "I know that most people in this house would have looked away, would have pretended they saw nothing, would have valued their own safety over an old woman's dignity." I couldn't read his expression, couldn't tell if this was a prelude to dismissal or something worse. "But you didn't." He moved closer and I caught his scent, rain and cedar and something darker, like gunpowder residue. "Why?" The honest answer stuck in my throat. Because I've spent my whole life watching people get hurt while others look away. Because I'm tired of being invisible. Because your mother looked at me like I was human. Instead, I said, she didn't deserve that. No, he agreed quietly. She didn't. Silence stretched between us. I could hear rain drumming against the narrow window above, water rushing through the gutters. Could feel the heat radiating from his body. Too close. Overwhelming. You're afraid of me, he observed. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Yes. Good. His head tilted slightly, studying me like I was a puzzle he hadn't expected to encounter. Fear keeps people alive in my world. Then why are you here? I asked, the words escaping before I could stop them. If I'm so insignificant, why follow me down here? Something flickered in those pale gray eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or amusement. She had no idea what she was. Standing there in her plain black uniform, hair falling loose from its bun, chin lifted in defiance despite the tremor in her hands, she looked like prey, trying to convince a predator she had teeth. It should have been laughable. Instead, Cassian found himself fascinated. He'd built his empire on reading people, knowing when they lied, when they broke, when they'd betray. But this woman, this maid, who'd dared to touch, Vivienne, who'd looked at him without flinching even as fear poured off her in waves, she was something different, unpredictable. And unpredictable things in his world either became weapons or casualties. He hadn't decided which she'd be yet. You're not insignificant, Cassian said finally, his voice so quiet I almost missed it under the rain. That's the problem. Before I could respond, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small black card, holding it between two fingers. My mother wants you in her suite. Full time. You'll sleep in the adjoining room, attend to her needs, keep her company. I stared at the card, his private number embossed in silver. I'm a housemaid? I'm not qualified? You're qualified enough to stand between her and danger. He cut me off. That's more than anyone else in this house has done. Vivienne won't. Vivienne, he said, her name like poison on his tongue, doesn't make decisions here. I do. The certainty in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it felt like a trap closing around me. This wasn't a promotion. This was him putting me exactly where he could watch me, control me, own me. Take it, he said, pressing the card into my palm. His fingers brushed mine, calloused, warm, sending an unwanted jolt up my arm. Unless you'd rather pack your things and leave tonight. Without references. Without money. Without anywhere safe to go. It wasn't a threat. Just a statement of fact. I closed my fingers around the card. When do I start? You already have. He stepped back, creating distance that somehow made the air easier to breathe. And Sarah? I looked up. Next time you grab someone's wrist? He said, his mouth curving into something that wasn't quite a smile. Make sure you're prepared for what comes after. Then he was gone, leaving me alone in the corridor with a black card burning in my palm and the sinking realization that I'd just stepped into a game I didn't know the rules to. The adjoining room was smaller than I expected. A narrow bed with crisp white linens, a wardrobe that smelled of cedar. A single window overlooking the eastern gardens where roses bloomed even in the rain. It was more space than I'd ever had. The servants' quarters downstairs were cramped, shared, always smelling of damp wool and someone else's cooking. But this room felt like a cage dressed in silk. I unpacked my few belongings in silence. 3 uniforms, a spare pair of shoes, a photograph of my mother I kept tucked in a book. When I opened the connecting door to Theodora's suite, I found her awake, propped against her pillows, watching me with those dark, knowing eyes. So he's made you my keeper, she said, her voice stronger than it had been hours ago. He's made me your companion, Signora. Don't lie to an old woman. She gestured weakly toward the chair beside her bed. He's put you here because you're the only one foolish enough to have stood up to her, and because he wants to see what you'll do next. I sat, folding my hands in my lap. I don't understand. My son collects broken things, Theodora said, her gaze drifting to the rain-streaked window. Shattered people, dangerous people. He studies them like specimens, decides if they're worth fixing or discarding. A chill crept down my spine. I'm not broken. Everyone in this house is broken, child. Her fingers found mine, paper-thin and cold. The question is whether you'll let him be the one to put you back together. I didn't see Cassian for 2 days, but I felt him everywhere. In the new lock installed on Theodora's door. In the way the other staff suddenly avoided my gaze when I passed. In the late-night footsteps that paused outside our suite, hesitated, then moved on. I spent those days learning Theodora's rhythms. When she wanted tea, when she wanted silence, when she needed someone to read to her from the leather-bound books lining her shelves. She told me stories between doses of medication, stories of a younger version of herself, fierce and untouchable. Stories of her husband, dead 15 years, who'd built this empire on blood and left their son to drown in it. Cassian was different before, she whispered one night, her voice barely audible over the storm. Before he had to become this. I wanted to ask what she meant, but her eyes closed and her breathing evened, and I was left alone with questions I had no right to ask. He came on the 3rd night. I was in the gardens, stealing a moment of air after hours of watching Theodora sleep. The rain had finally stopped, leaving everything wet and gleaming under a half-moon. I'd found a stone bench hidden among the roses, their scent heavy and sweet in the darkness. You shouldn't be out here alone. I spun, my heart lurching. Cassian emerged from the shadows like something conjured. He'd traded his suits for dark jeans and a black shirt, sleeves rolled up, his hair slightly disheveled. He looked less controlled, more human, more dangerous. Your mother is sleeping, I said, standing. I thought that you could pretend this is a normal house? He moved closer, and I caught the smell of tobacco on him, sharp and woody. That you could take midnight walks without consequence? I didn't think. You don't. He stopped a few feet away, pulling a silver lighter from his pocket, flicking it open, closed, open, closed. The metallic click punctuated the silence. That's what makes you dangerous. I watched the lighter catch moonlight, mesmerized by the repetitive motion. Is that why you put me upstairs? To control the damage? His mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile. I put you upstairs because my mother hasn't smiled in 6 months. Until you. The admission hung between us, unexpected and raw. She told me you collect broken things, I said quietly. The lighter stilled in his hand. Did she? She said you study people, decide if they're worth fixing. For a long moment, he said nothing, just stood there, the lighter caught between his fingers, his expression unreadable in the shadows. Then he moved, closing the distance between us in 2 strides, and I found myself backed against the stone bench, his body a wall of heat and barely controlled tension. You want to know what I see when I look at you? His voice dropped to something barely above a whisper. Intimate. Lethal. I couldn't speak. Could barely breathe. I see someone who doesn't know when to run. His hand lifted, and I flinched, but he only plucked a rose petal from my hair. Must have fallen while I sat. He studied it, crushed it slowly between his fingers. Someone who stood between my mother and violence without thinking about consequences. Someone who's either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Which one am I? His eyes met mine, gray like winter storms. I haven't decided yet. He should walk away. Should go back inside, marry Vivienne like the alliance demanded, let this strange girl disappear into the background where she belonged. But when she looked at him like that, afraid but defiant, vulnerable but refusing to break, something in his chest cracked open. Something he'd buried deep and convinced himself was dead. Want. Not possession. Not control. Just want. Christ. He was in trouble. Go back inside, Cassian said, his voice rough. He stepped back, creating distance, the lighter clicking open-closed open in his hand again. and stay away from the gardens after dark. Why? He looked at me one last time, and something in his expression made my breath catch. Something that looked almost like regret. Because I can't protect you from everything, Sarah. He turned toward the house, his voice carrying back to me on the night air. Not even from myself. Then he was gone, leaving me alone among the roses with the ghost of crushed petals and the rhythmic echo of a silver lighter that I knew, somehow, I'd hear in my dreams. I woke to the sound of breaking glass. For a moment, I lay frozen in the darkness, my heart hammering against my ribs, trying to place the sound. Then I heard it again. A muffled crash from Theodora's room, followed by a voice I didn't recognize. Male. Rough. Where is it, old woman? I was out of bed before conscious thought caught up, my bare feet silent on the cold floor. The connecting door stood slightly ajar, lamplight spilling through the crack. I pressed myself against the wall, my pulse roaring in my ears. Through the gap, I saw him. A man in dark clothes, his face half hidden by a black cap, looming over Theodora's bed. He held something in his hand, a knife, the blade catching the light as he pressed it close to her throat. I don't have time for games, he hissed. The ledger, where does he keep it? Theodora's voice came out steady despite the blade at her neck. Go to hell. He raised his hand. I didn't think. I grabbed the heavy brass lamp from my nightstand and shoved through the door. Get away from her! The man spun, his eyes widening with surprise for just a second. Long enough for me to swing the lamp with everything I had. It connected with his shoulder, and he stumbled back with a curse, the knife clattering to the floor. But he was faster than I expected. His fist caught me across the jaw, and suddenly I was on the ground, the taste of copper flooding my mouth, stars exploding behind my eyes. You stupid bitch, he snarled, grabbing a fistful of my hair. Then the door exploded inward. Cassian moved like violence given form. 1 second he was in the doorway, the next his hand was wrapped around the intruder's throat, slamming him against the wall so hard the paintings rattled. The man's feet kicked uselessly, his face turning purple. Who sent you? Cassian's voice was cold. Clinical. Nothing like the man in the garden 3 nights ago. The intruder gasped, clawing at Cassian's grip. I asked you a question. Cassian's free hand produced a gun from somewhere, pressed it against the man's temple. Who sent you? Marchetti, the man choked out. Santo Marchetti. Said you had something. Ledger. The name meant nothing to me, but I saw Theodora's face pale. Cassian's expression didn't change, he simply pulled the trigger. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. The man's body went limp, and Cassian let him drop to the floor like discarded trash. Blood spread across the pristine white marble in a dark, expanding pool. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't stop staring at the body, at the blood, at the way Cassian calmly tucked the gun back into his waistband like he'd just completed a mundane task. Mama, he said, his voice gentling as he turned to Theodora. Are you hurt? No. Her hand shook as she reached for him. But the ledger? I know. He kissed her knuckles, then his eyes found me on the floor. Something flickered in his expression. Sarah. I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. The room spun, and I tasted blood where I'd bitten, my tongue. Cassian crossed to me in 3 strides, crouching down. His hands were still warm from the man's throat, but they were gentle as they touched my face, tilting my chin to examine the damage. You hit him with a lamp. It wasn't a question. He had a knife, I whispered. So you hit him with a lamp. A muscle worked in his jaw. Christo, Sarah. Do you have any sense of self-preservation? He was going to hurt her. And he almost killed you. His thumb brushed across my split lip, and I flinched. His eyes darkened. Can you stand? I nodded, and he helped me up, his grip steady on my elbow. The room tilted, and I found myself pressed against his chest, his heart beating fast and hard beneath my cheek. Take her to my office, Theodora said, her voice tight. Before the others come. She can't be seen like this. Mama. Now Cassian. She looked at me, and something passed between us. Understanding. She defended me. Twice. That makes her a target. Cassian's office was all dark wood and leather, books lining the walls, a massive desk positioned to face the door. He locked it behind us, then guided me to a chair before disappearing through a side door. I heard water running. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving me shaky and cold. I stared at my hands. They were trembling, smudged with dust from the lamp. Not blood, thank God. But I could still see it spreading across white marble, could still hear the gunshot echoing in my skull. He'd killed a man. Just killed him. Like it was nothing. Cassian returned with a first aid kit and a glass of whiskey. He pressed the glass into my hand. Drink. I did. The alcohol burned down my throat, sharp and grounding. He knelt in front of me, opening the kit with practiced efficiency. This will sting. The antiseptic made me hiss, but I didn't pull away as he cleaned the cut on my lip. His touch was careful, almost tender, at odds with the violence I'd just witnessed. "Who's Santo Marchetti?" I asked. Problem." He pressed a butterfly bandage to my lip. One I thought I'd handled 6 months ago. He wanted a ledger. He wants leverage. Cassian sat back on his heels, studying me. My father kept records. Names, dates, payments. Proof of every politician, every judge, every cop he bought. Whoever controls that ledger controls this city. And you have it. I had it hidden. His jaw tightened. Someone talked. Someone told Marchetti where to look. The implications settled over me like ice water. There's a traitor in your house. Yes. His eyes held mine. Which means you're not safe here, not anymore, not after tonight. So what happens now? He stood, and the lamplight caught his face. Hard plains and shadows, beautiful and brutal. Now, he said quietly, I keep you alive. The words should have been reassuring. Instead, they sounded like a promise and a threat wrapped into one. You can't be serious. I stared at the hidden door Cassian had just revealed, built seamlessly, into the bookshelf behind his desk. Beyond it, a narrow corridor stretched into darkness, lit by emergency lighting that cast everything in cold blue. Completely serious, he held out his hand. Come. I didn't move. You're hiding me in a panic room? A safe room, he corrected. Reinforced steel walls, independent ventilation, surveillance of every entrance to the estate. You'll stay here until I identify the leak. For how long? His jaw tightened. As long as it takes. Your mother. We'll have round-the-clock security. 4 guards I personally vetted. He stepped closer and I caught that scent again. Cedar and gunpowder. Danger wrapped in expensive cologne. You hid an intruder with a lamp, Sarah. Marchetti's men saw you. They know your face. Do you understand what that means? I understood. I'd watched him put a bullet through a man's skull less than an hour ago. Watched the light go out of someone's eyes like flipping a switch. I understood exactly what it meant. What? About Vivienne? I asked. Won't she wonder? Vivienne left for Milan this afternoon. Something dark crossed his expression. Apparently, she finds attempted murders inconvenient. The bitterness in his voice surprised me. I'd assumed his engagement was purely strategic, emotionless. But the way he said her name, like it cost him something, made me wonder what I didn't know. Cassian, I said quietly. I can't hide forever. No. His eyes met mine. But you can hide until I make sure keeping you alive doesn't require killing half the city. The weight of that statement settled between us. He wasn't exaggerating. This was his world. Violence and counter-violence. Protection measured in body counts. I took his hand. His fingers closed around mine, warm and calloused, and he led me into the corridor. The bookshelf swung shut behind us with a soft click that sounded too much like a lock engaging. The safe room was larger than I expected. A living space with a leather sofa, a couchage, kitchenette stocked with supplies, a bathroom behind a frosted glass door. One wall was entirely screens, security feeds showing every corner of the estate in grainy black and white. I could see Theodora's room, guards now posted outside, the gardens where we'd stood among roses, the front gates, rain starting to fall again. "There's a bedroom through there," Cassian said, gesturing to another door. "Clean clothes in the dresser. You'll find everything you need." Everything except freedom, I thought, but I didn't say it. He moved to the control panel, checking feeds with practiced efficiency. In this light, with his shirt sleeves still rolled up, dried blood barely visible on his cuff, he looked less like an heir and more like a soldier, someone who'd learned to survive by being harder than everything trying to kill him. "How often do you use this room?" I asked. "Often enough." He pulled up a feed showing the East Wing, where a cleaning crew was already working on Theodora's suite, erasing evidence. "My father built it during the Russo Wars. I've hidden here twice. Once when I was 15, once 2 years ago when the Calabrians tried to take our territory." "And you survived?" "Obviously." His mouth curved slightly, but there was no humor in it. "Survival is what Veils do best." I sat on the sofa, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline had fully drained now, leaving me hollow and shaky. "You didn't have to kill him." "Yes," Cassian said quietly. "I did. There are other ways. Not in my world." He turned from the screens, and the look in his eyes made my breath catch. "You want to know what would have happened if I'd let him live? He'd have reported back to Marchetti, described you, given your name. By morning, every soldier in his organization would be hunting you. So you killed him to protect me." "I killed him," he corrected, moving closer, "because he put his hands on you. The rest was just convenient." The admission hung in the air between us, raw and dangerous. "You don't even know me," I whispered. "I know you hit a mobster with a lamp." He sat on the arm of the sofa, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him. "I know you grabbed my fiancée's wrist when she struck my mother. I know you read to her from poetry books when she can't sleep, and you arrange the roses in her room even though she never asks." My throat tightened. "You've been watching me." "I watch everything." His hand lifted, hesitated, then gently touched the bruise forming on my jaw where the intruder had hit me. "But you're the only thing I can't stop watching." The vulnerability in those words undid something in my chest. This man, this killer, this heir to violence, looked at me like I was breakable and precious and terrifying all at once. "Cassian," I breathed. "Don't." His thumb traced my cheekbone, feather light. "Don't say my name like that. Not when I'm trying to be good." "What if I don't want you to be good?" The words escaped before I could stop them, reckless and honest. His eyes darkened, his hand stilling against my face. "Sarah." My name on his lips sounded like a prayer and a curse. "You don't know what you're asking." "Then tell me." For a long moment he just looked at me, then he stood abruptly, putting distance between us, his control visibly fracturing. "Get some sleep," he said, his voice rough. "I'll be monitoring the feeds. If anything moves, I'll know." "You're staying?" "Someone has to keep you alive." He settled into the chair facing the screens, his back to me. "Even if it's from yourself." I wanted to argue, wanted to close the distance he'd created, wanted to understand this pull between us that felt inevitable and impossible. Instead, I retreated to the bedroom, closing the door softly behind me. But through the walls, I could hear him moving, could feel his presence like a physical weight, and when I finally lay down in the unfamiliar bed, I knew neither of us would sleep. Not with only a door, and too many unsaid words between us. I didn't sleep. How could I, when every sound filtered through the walls, the soft tap of his fingers on keys, the creak of his chair, the barely audible exhale that told me he was just as restless as I was. At 3 in the morning, I gave up. I pulled on the oversized sweater I'd found in the dresser. His, probably, smelling of cedar and something uniquely him, and padded barefoot into the main room. Cassian sat hunched over the screens, his face washed blue by the monitors. He'd removed his shirt entirely, wearing only a white undershirt that clung to the muscles of his back. His hair was disheveled, falling across his forehead, and there was a tension in his shoulders that spoke of hours held rigid. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked without turning around. "Neither could you. I don't sleep much." His fingers moved across the keyboard, cycling through feeds. Habit from when I was younger, when sleeping meant being vulnerable. I moved closer, studying the screens over his shoulder. Guards patrolled the perimeter. Rain hammered the gardens. Theodora's room was dark and still, her breathing monitor showing steady green lines. "When did you stop feeling safe?" I asked quietly. His hand stilled on the keys. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, I was 12. I waited, sensing he needed the silence to continue. My father had enemies. We all knew it. But I thought... He rubbed his face, and I saw how young he looked, stripped of his armor. "I thought we were untouchable, that our name meant something, that the walls around this estate were high enough. What happened? They came during a storm. Just like tonight." His voice had gone distant, seeing something I couldn't. 7 men. They bypassed our security, killed 3 guards, made it all the way to the 3rd floor. My father was away on business. My mother tried to get me to the safe room, this room, but we didn't make it. My heart clenched. "Cassian..." "They held a gun to her head," he continued, as if I hadn't spoken. "Made me watch while they demanded to know where my father kept his money, his weapons, his secrets." His hand lifted unconsciously to his ribs, and I saw the edge of a scar beneath his undershirt. She wouldn't tell them, so they hurt her. And when I tried to stop them, they hurt me. I couldn't help it. My hand found his shoulder, and he flinched at the contact before forcing himself still. "My father came home early," he said, "killed all 7 of them in this house. But by then, something in me was..." He stopped, searching for the word. "Broken." I understood that safety was an illusion, that the only way to protect what you love is to be more dangerous than everything trying to destroy it. "So you became dangerous. I became necessary." He finally turned to look at me, and the rawness in his eyes stole my breath. "Every man I've killed, every deal I've made, every line I've crossed, it's all been to make sure no one ever holds a gun to her head again." The weight of that devotion, that damage, pressed against my chest. And now someone's trying. Yes. His jaw tightened. Because I got soft. Because I let Vivian into our lives thinking an alliance would bring peace. Because I didn't see the knife until it was already at my mother's throat. "That wasn't your fault?" "Everything is my fault." He stood abruptly, and suddenly we were too close, his chest nearly touching mine, his heat overwhelming. "I run this empire. I make the calls. When someone dies, it's on my orders. When someone lives, it's because I allowed it." "You're not God, Cassian." "No," he agreed, his voice dropping to something raw and broken. "I'm worse. God forgives." The confession hung between us, terrible and honest. I reached up without thinking, my hand finding his face, feeling the rough stubble beneath my palm. He closed his eyes like my touch hurt. "You saved your mother tonight," I whispered. "You saved me. I put you in danger in the first place." His hand covered mine, pressing it harder against his cheek. "By noticing you, by keeping you close, by being too goddamn selfish to let you go when I should have. Maybe I don't want to go." His eyes opened, and what I saw there made my knees weak. Want. Need. Fear. Sarah. My name sounded wrecked. "If you stay in my world, it will ruin you." "What if I'm already ruined?" Something in him snapped. His free hand came up to cut my face, his thumb brushing across my split lip with aching gentleness. "You're not. You're... Christo. You're the only clean thing I've touched in years." "Then don't let go." For one suspended moment we just breathed the same air. His forehead dropped to mine, his hands trembling against my skin like he was holding back an earthquake. "I should lock you in that bedroom," he murmured. "Keep you safe from everything, especially from me." "You won't." "No." A sound escaped him, half laugh, half groan. I won't. Because I'm a bastard who wants you here, even knowing it might kill you. Then his lips brushed mine. Barely. A whisper of contact across my injured mouth, careful and devastating. Not a kiss. A promise. A warning. A crack in his armor wide enough for me to see straight through to the broken boy underneath the killer. When he pulled back, his control was visibly fracturing. Go back to bed, Sarah, please. Cassian. Please. The word came out ragged. Before I stopped being able to let you go. So I went. Even though everything in me screamed to stay. Even though I could feel his eyes on my back until the bedroom door closed between us. And through the walls, I heard him return to the screens. Heard the soft, rhythmic click of his lighter opening and closing. A nervous habit, I realized. The sound of a man barely holding himself together. I woke to voices. Low. Urgent. Filtering through the bedroom door I'd left slightly ajar. For a moment I lay still, disoriented, the unfamiliar room swimming into focus around me. Then I recognized Cassian's voice, and something in his tone made my chest tighten. Don't care what Marchand says. The agreement stands. Another voice responded, male and older. She's a liability now, Cassian. You know the rules. Witnesses don't. She's not a witness. She's under my protection. Your protection. The other man's laugh was bitter. Is that what we're calling it? Christo, you sound like your father. He kept a girl once too. Convinced himself it was about protection. Look how that ended. Silence. Heavy and dangerous. I should have made myself known. Should have coughed or shifted or done something to announce I was awake. Instead, I found myself frozen, barely breathing, my heart hammering against my ribs. Sarah is different, Cassian said finally, his voice low. Different how? Because she's pretty? Because she makes your mother smile? The other man's tone sharpened. Or because she's the perfect bait? My blood turned to ice. Watch yourself, Paolo. Someone has to say it. Footsteps paced across the room. Marchetti wants the ledger. He's already sent one man. He'll send more. But if he thinks you care about the girl, if he believes she means something to you, then he'll come for her. Cassian finished quietly. I know. So you understand. She's not protection. She's strategy. A pause. You kept her close because anyone watching would assume she matters. And when Marchetti moves against her, you'll be ready. You'll catch him. No, that couldn't be. It's brilliant, really, Paolo continued. Cold, but brilliant. Using her as bait without her even knowing. Very much your father's son. Get out. Cassian, I said get out. The sound of a door opening, closing. Then silence. I pressed my hand against my mouth, fighting the nausea rising in my throat. The room suddenly felt smaller, the walls closing in. Every moment replayed in my head with sickening clarity, the way he'd positioned me in his mother's suite where everyone could see, the too convenient timing of the attack, the way he'd hidden me in this room where Marchetti's spies could easily believe I was something precious worth stealing, the perfect bait. I'd been so stupid, so goddamn naive, thinking his protection meant something, thinking that almost kiss had been real. The bedroom door opened. Cassian stood in the doorway, still shirtless, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. When he saw me sitting up, awake, something flickered in his expression. How much did you hear? He asked quietly. I couldn't speak past the betrayal lodged in my throat. His jaw tightened. Sarah, was he right? My voice came out steadier than I felt. Am I bait? He stepped into the room and I scrambled back against the headboard. He froze. Is that what you think? His voice had gone dangerous. That I'd use you like that? I think, I said, my hands shaking, that you're very good at making people believe what you want them to believe. I think you've survived this long by being smarter and colder than everyone around you. And I think... My voice cracked. I think I was an idiot to trust you. He'd known this moment would come, had known from the second Paolo opened his mouth that Sarah would hear, would doubt, would look at him exactly like she was looking at him now, like he was the monster everyone said he was. The smart thing would be to let her believe it, to let her hate him. It would be safer for her in the long run, wouldn't it? Fear kept people alive. Distance kept them breathing. But standing there, watching her press herself against the headboard like he was the threat, something in his chest cracked open. Something that had been carefully locked away since he was 12 years old, watching his mother bleed on marble floors. Screw safety, screw strategy. He was so goddamn tired of being alone. "You want the truth?" Cassian asked, his voice raw. "Fine, here it is." He moved to the bed and I flinched, but he didn't touch me. Just sat on the edge, his hands clasped between his knees, his head bowed like a penitent. "When I first noticed you," he said quietly, "it was because you did something no one in this house has done in 15 years. You looked at my mother like she was human. Not a relic, not a symbol. Just a woman who was dying and alone." I didn't respond. Couldn't. Then you defended her. Twice. His hands tightened. And I thought, here's someone who doesn't know how to be anything but brave. Even when brave means stupid. Even when it might get her killed. So you decided to use me. No. He looked up, and the anguish in his eyes made my breath catch. "I decided to keep you alive. But Paolo's right about one thing. Anyone watching would see that I care. That you matter. And in my world, anything that matters becomes a weapon." "Then let me go." "I can't." The admission came out broken. "Because if I let you go, Marchetti will find you. And he won't just kill you, Sarah. He'll make it slow. He'll make it hurt. He'll send me pieces of you until I give him what he wants." Tears burned behind my eyes. "So what am I supposed to do? Stay here and wait to be used? Wait for someone to come through that door and—" "You're supposed to trust me." He reached for me slowly, like approaching something wild. His hand found mine, and I hated how right it felt. "I know I haven't earned it. I know everything about me screams danger. But I swear to you, on my mother's life, on my own soul, you are not bait. You are not a pawn." "Then what am I?" His thumb traced circles on my wrist, right over my racing pulse. "You're the first thing in 10 years that's made me want to be better than what I am." The alarms screamed to life at dawn. Red lights flooded the safe room and every screen erupted with movement. Figures in black pouring through the east gates, cutting through security like they were nothing. At least a dozen men. Maybe more. Cassian was on his feet instantly, pulling his shirt on, checking his gun with movements so practiced they looked choreographed. "Stay here. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone." "Wait." I scrambled off the bed, my heart in my throat. "You can't go out there alone." "I'm not alone." He was already at the weapons cache hidden in the wall, pulling out more magazines, a knife. "My men are responding. But they're targeting the main house. They want the ledger." "Let them have it." He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "That ledger is the only thing keeping this family alive. Without it, we have no leverage, no protection. We're dead within a week." On the screens, I watched Marchetti's men breach the front door. Watched Cassian's guards engage, gunfire lighting up the marble foyer in muzzle flashes. Watched someone go down, blood spreading across expensive rugs. "Cassian, please." He crossed to me in 2 strides, his hands framing my face. "I need you to be brave one more time. Can you do that?" I wanted to scream that I wasn't brave, that I was terrified, that watching him walk toward gunfire felt like dying. Instead, I nodded. He pressed his forehead to mine, just for a second. "If something happens, if they get through, there's a tunnel behind the bathroom mirror. Follow it to the wine cellar. There's a car waiting with keys in the visor. Drive until you hit the highway, then call this number." He pressed a card into my hand. "He'll get you somewhere safe." "Cassian." But he was already gone, the door sealing behind him with a hydraulic hiss. I stood frozen, his warmth still lingering on my skin, watching the screens as he appeared in the west corridor. He moved like death itself, fluid, economical, every motion purposeful. When he encountered the first intruder, it was over in seconds. A shot, a body dropping. He didn't even slow down. I watched it all unfold like a nightmare in high definition. Cassian cutting through the estate, his face expressionless, firing with terrifying precision, his men rallying around him, forming a defensive line, the intruders falling back, regrouping. The sheer brutality of it, not movie violence, but something uglier, messier, real. Then I saw her, Vivian, appearing on one of the external feeds, being escorted by two of Marchetti's men toward a black SUV parked in the circular drive. Not dragged, not fighting, escorted. My blood turned to ice. No. 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 I was at the control panel before conscious thought caught up, cycling through feeds, trying to find Cassian. He was in the study now, pinned down by gunfire, 3 men between him and the door. He didn't know, couldn't see what I was seeing. That his fiancée was walking away with the enemy. That the woman he was supposed to marry had betrayed him. My hands shook as I reached for the intercom button, the one he'd shown me in case of emergency. Cassian! Gunfire erupted closer than before. Too close. The safe room door shuddered under impact. Open up, little bird. A man's voice, accented and amused. We know you're in there. My heart stopped. I spun toward the bathroom, toward the escape tunnel, but another voice cut through. Come out, or we execute the old woman. The screen showed Theodora's room. 3 men inside. One holding her by her hair, a gun pressed against her temple. She was awake, her face pale but defiant, and when she looked directly at the camera, she mouthed 2 words. Run, child. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the roaring in my ears. The door shuddered again, metal screeching. They had something, a torch, maybe, cutting through the reinforced steel. I had seconds to decide. Run and let Theodora die, or surrender, and... The screens flickered. Then Cassian's voice came through, rough and urgent. Sarah, if you can hear me, run. Don't you dare open that door. I'm coming. Gunfire. A grunt of pain. The feed from the study went dark. Cassian! I slammed my hand against the intercom. Cassian, answer me. Static. The door groaned, a thin line of light appearing along the seal. 30 seconds, maybe less. On the screen, the man pressed the gun harder against Theodora's head. 10 seconds, little bird, then I paint the walls with her. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to save myself, to take the tunnel and not look back. But I saw Theodora's face, saw the woman who'd told me stories, who'd held my hand, who'd smiled for the first time in 6 months because I'd arranged roses by her bed. I saw the mother of a man who'd killed for me, protected me, looked at me like I was something worth ruining himself over. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. 5 seconds. I grabbed the silver lighter Cassian had left on the table, the one that clicked open-closed open when he was nervous. Slipped it into my pocket like a talisman. Then I opened the safe room door. 6 men stood in the corridor, guns raised. The one in front smiled, and it was the cruelest thing I'd ever seen. There she is, he said. Santo's going to be so pleased. Behind them, I heard an inhuman roar, saw a figure moving through smoke and darkness covered in blood. Cassian, still standing, still fighting, still coming for me, but not fast enough. The man's hand closed around my arm and everything went black. I woke to the smell of copper and cologne. My head throbbed where someone had hit me, and my wrists burned. Zip ties, too tight, cutting into skin. I was in a chair, concrete floor beneath my feet, dim lights overhead casting everything in sickly yellow. A warehouse. Empty except for crates and shadows and the 3 men watching me like I was prey. She's awake, one of them called. Footsteps approached, expensive shoes clicking against concrete. A man emerged from the darkness, mid-50s, silver hair, tailored suit. He carried himself like someone who'd never been told no. Santo Marchetti. Miss Sarah? He smiled, pulling up a chair to sit. across from me. Forgive the accommodations. We're working with limited resources thanks to your employer's efficiency. My throat was dry, but I forced words out. Where's Theodora? The old woman? Still breathing. For now. He studied me like I was interesting. You surrendered yourself for her. Very noble. Very stupid. Let her go. You have me. I have a maid who hit one of my men with a lamp. His smile widened. But what I want is the ledger. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to call Cassian Vale. You're going to tell him that if he wants you back alive, he brings me what I want. He won't negotiate with you. No? Marchetti pulled out a phone, holding it up. On the screen, a live feed. Theodora's room. Empty now. Guards posted outside. Maybe not for you, but for his mother? When I sent him her fingers one by one? Nausea rolled through me. You're a monster. I'm a businessman. He stood, pocketing the phone. You have 1 hour to think about it. Then we make that call. He left me with the guards, disappearing into the warehouse shadows. The zip ties cut deeper with every breath, and I could feel panic rising, hot and suffocating. 1 hour. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of Cassian's lighter in my pocket. They'd searched me but somehow missed it. Such a small thing. Useless. But it smelled like him. Cedar and gunpowder. Danger and protection wrapped into one. I pressed my bound wrists against it, drawing strength from something I couldn't name. The explosion came 30 minutes later. The east wall erupted in fire and debris, the shockwave throwing everyone sideways. I hit the ground hard, my shoulders screaming, ears ringing so loud I couldn't hear the gunfire that followed. But I saw him. Cassian, emerging through smoke like an avenging angel, blood streaked across his face, his white shirt torn and stained. He moved through Marchetti's men like a storm, precise, brutal, unstoppable. 3 shots, 3 bodies. One of the guards grabbed me, pressing a gun to my head. Don't move, or she... Cassian's bullet caught him between the eyes before he finished the sentence. Then Cassian was there, cutting through my restraints with his knife, his hands shaking as they found my face. Christo, Sarah, are you hurt? Did they... I'm okay, I gasped. Cassian, Vivienne, she betrayed you. I saw her on the cameras. I know. His voice was hollow. Paolo found the evidence while I was fighting. She's been working with Marchetti for months. The attack tonight was supposed to get me killed so she could take control of everything. The betrayal in his eyes gutted me. This was a man who'd built his whole life on control, on always being 3 steps ahead, and the woman he was supposed to marry had played him completely. Where is she now? I asked. Gone. Fled to Marchetti's estate upstate. His thumb brushed across my cheek, his expression fracturing. I should have seen it, should have known. Cassian. Gunfire erupted from the upper level. More of Marchetti's men, reinforcements. Cassian shoved me behind a crate, returning fire with cold efficiency. But there were too many. We were pinned. The back exit, he said, ejecting an empty magazine, slamming in a fresh one. When I say run, you run. Don't stop. Don't look back. What about you? His eyes met mine, and I saw it. The acceptance. The resignation. I'll hold them off. No. My hand locked around his wrist. No. You don't get to die for me. Not after everything. Sarah, I didn't survive tonight just to watch you sacrifice yourself. The words came out fierce, desperate. You told me to trust you, so trust me. We leave together or not at all. Something shifted in his expression. For one suspended moment, the gunfire faded, and it was just us, broken and bloodied and refusing to let go. Then he kissed me. Hard, desperate. His hand tangling in my hair, tasting like copper and smoke and something raw that made my chest crack open. Not gentle, not careful. A collision of need and fear and the terrifying realization that we might not survive the next 5 minutes. When he pulled back, his forehead pressed to mine, his breathing ragged. If we die here? We're not dying here. I grabbed his gun hand, steadying it. But if we do, I need you to know. Don't. His voice broke. Don't say it. Not like this. More gunfire. Closer now. Marchetti's voice echoing through the warehouse. Cassian Vale, such dramatic rescues. But you're trapped. Surrounded. Give me the ledger and I'll let you both walk away. Cassian's jaw tightened. His free hand went to his jacket pocket, pulling out a small flash drive. The ledger. He'd brought it. Had risked everything. His empire, his life, his mother's safety. For me. Cassian, no. For you. His eyes held mine. I'd burn it all down. Then he stood, raising the flash drive above the crate. Marchetti, let's make a deal. The ledger for the girl. Cassian's voice echoed through the warehouse. You let her walk out, then we talk. Silence. Then Marchetti's laugh, cold and calculating. You think I'm stupid, Vale? The moment she's gone, you'll destroy that drive. Probably. Cassian's hand found mine below the crate, squeezing once. Hard. But you're not getting it any other way. I could hear Marchetti's men repositioning, boots scraping concrete. We were still surrounded. Still trapped. The flash drive might buy us minutes, but not freedom. Then I remembered. The lighter, I whispered. In my pocket. Cassian's eyes snapped to mine, understanding dawning. Behind us, stacked against the wall, crates marked with hazard symbols, chemicals, accelerants. This whole warehouse was a tinderbox. His mouth curved into something dark and reckless. You're insane. I learned from the best. I pulled out the lighter, pressing it into his palm. On 3? She was going to get them both killed, and Christo help him. He'd never wanted anything more than to die beside this woman who'd hit mobsters with lamps and looked at him like he was worth saving. 1, he said. Sarah tensed beside him, ready. 2. He pulled the pin on the smoke grenade he'd been saving, tossed it high. 3. The lighter sparked. The crate ignited, and all hell broke loose. Fire erupted with a roar that shook my bones. Smoke filled the warehouse instantly, thick, black, choking. Cassian's hand locked around mine, and then we were running blind through chaos. Gunfire cracked randomly, men shouting, flames spreading faster than should have been possible. We hit the back door at full speed. It gave under Cassian's shoulder, and suddenly, we were outside. Rain and darkness and blessed air. Behind us, the warehouse collapsed inward, orange flames punching through the roof. Keep moving. Cassian pulled me toward a black motorcycle hidden behind a dumpster. They'll have men at every exit. A gunshot, too close. Cassian spun, returning fire, and I saw blood bloom across his side. He stumbled, catching himself against the motorcycle. No. I caught him as his knees buckled. Cassian, no, stay with me. I'm fine. But his face had gone pale, his hand pressed against the wound. Get on the bike. You're bleeding. Sarah. His eyes found mine, fierce despite the pain. Trust me. One more time. So I got on the bike, and he climbed on behind me, his arms wrapping around my waist. His blood soaked through my clothes, warm and terrifying. Can you drive? I asked, my voice shaking. No. His forehead dropped to my shoulder. But you can. Keys in the ignition. Clutches on the left. Give it hell. I'd never driven a motorcycle in my life. I gave it hell. We made it 3 miles before he passed out. I pulled over on a deserted stretch of highway, easing him off the bike as gently as I could. His breathing was shallow, his skin cold, despite the blood still seeping through his shirt. Cassian. I pressed my hands against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. Stay with me, please. You don't get to save me and then die. That's not how this works. His eyes flickered open, unfocused. The flash drive. What? In my pocket. Not the real ledger. A weak smile. Just my mother's recipes. Thought Marchetti might like her carbonara. A sob laugh burst out of me. You're dying and making jokes. Not dying. His hand found mine, slick with blood. Just resting. Call the number I gave you. Paolo will send help. I fumbled for the card with shaking hands. Dialed. Paolo answered on the first ring, and I barely got the words out. Highway, bleeding, hurry, before my voice gave out entirely. 10 minutes, Paolo said. Keep pressure on the wound. Keep him talking. Cassian's eyes were drifting closed again. Hey. I grabbed his face, forcing him to look at me. You told me to be brave. Now it's your turn. Stay awake. Stay with me. Why? The word came out slurred. Because the confession stuck in my throat. Because you promised me we'd leave together. So you don't get to leave at all. Not without me. Not ever. His thumb traced my cheekbone, smearing blood across my skin. Say it. Cassian. Please. His voice broke on the word. In case I don't. In case this is. I love you. The words came out fierce and terrified. You beautiful, broken, impossible man. I love you. Something that might have been a laugh or a sob escaped him. Took you long enough. Then headlights appeared. 2 black SUVs, Paolo already running toward us with a medic. They worked fast, efficient, loading Cassian onto a stretcher while I held his hand and refused to let go. The old woman? Cassian asked Paolo weakly. Safe. Guards held the line. Marchetti lost 20 men tonight. Paolo's expression was grim. But he's still alive. Still out there. Good. Cassian's eyes found mine one last time before they loaded him into the vehicle. Gives me a reason to survive. 3 weeks later, the rain had finally stopped. I sat by Theodora's window, reading to her from the poetry books she loved, while she dozed in the afternoon light. Her color was better. Her breathing easier. She'd started smiling again. The door opened quietly. Cassian stood there, shirt unbuttoned over fresh bandages, his hair still damp from the shower. The wound had taken him close to death, but he was stubborn. Vales survived. How is she? He asked softly. Dreaming. I set down the book, and he crossed to me, pulling me up and into his arms. How are you? Alive. His lips found my forehead, my cheek, finally my mouth. Gentle now. Careful, but no less devastating. Because of you. We saved each other. Yes. His hands framed my face, and I saw everything in his eyes, love and darkness and promises that would probably destroy us both eventually. And I'm not letting you go. Not to Marchetti, not to safety, not to anything. Good. I kissed him again, tasting rain and future and danger wrapped in devotion. Because I'm done running. Outside, storm clouds gathered on the horizon.